Welcome to a Studio Shop Gallery Art Talk. Today, I would like to welcome our special guests, renowned artist Roland Petersen, in conversation with our moderator, the esteemed art professor and writer, John Seed. Today's art talk is presented in concert with a retrospective exhibition of Petersen's art at the Studio Shop Gallery this September 2021. A recorded version of this webinar will be available on the gallery website, studioshopgallery.com. Roland Petersen hardly needs an introduction. He is one of the most hardworking and prolific artists of his generation, actively creating art since the 1950s. He continues now, well into his 90s, to paint almost daily with energy and vigor, a true inspiration. Petersen is most well known for his vivid paintings incorporating color, pattern, figures, and landscape into scenes that are a feast for the eyes. For almost 4 decades, he taught in the illustrious UC Davis Art Department, where he now holds the title of Professor Emeritus. Prominent museums across the US hold his works in their collections, including the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, the Museum of Modern Art and the Whitney in New York, and the Hirshhorn and the National Gallery of Fine Art in Washington, DC. It is now my great honor to turn this over to Roland Petersen and John Seed.
Thank you for the nice introduction. And I'm just going to say, to get this started, that I personally want to congratulate Roland. And in these kind of strange circumstances, I mean, I think the last time I saw Roland, I've got a photo that a friend took where, drinking wine at an opening in the studio shop there in person. It was a very, very different context. But I understand that yesterday, Roland and Carol were able to see the show, get in there firsthand and get the feeling of it. And Roland, that really leads to my first question. What did it feel like to walk into that gallery in Burlingame and see one painting from 1953 alongside paintings leading all the way up to 2021, 68 years of painting in one gallery? I'm just curious what that felt like.
It felt awesome.
Right. May we all be so lucky. Yeah.
Really nice. I was very pleased. Very pleased.
I'll tell you what I'm looking at now in the catalog. I've got the catalog open to a painting from 1956. It's the resting figure,
Right.
A 30 by 28 oil on canvas.
Mhm.
And here's what I'm thinking as I look at it. I'm thinking that you certainly were in the Bay Area, returning to a place you'd previously studied, but you were kind of on the edge of what we all now call Bay Area figurative painting.
Mhm.
I'm sure you looked at and knew those painters, but your work looked a little bit different. You'd come from some different influences. Does that sound about right?
That sounds pretty good. Yeah, I would say.
Now I'm going ahead a little bit. By 1960, that must be one of the very, very earliest picnic paintings that you did after becoming a faculty member at Davis. And it's a very, rather than palette knife, it's a very brushy painting with a lot of mixing of paint wet on the surface.
That's right. That's a very early one, correct.
I mean, do you think that's maybe the earliest, or were there other picnics that came before that in the late 50s?
This is pretty much the first, yeah. So I was very fascinated with the picnic day at the university. So this is sort of a takeoff on that, the scene that I sort of was fascinated with.
I'm moving a little bit further along. I'm looking at winter landscape now on page 21, a painting that kind of moves horizontally across the canvas with some very bold patches of oranges and deep violet tones. What do you remember about that painting? I noticed it's a case scene and acrylic painting, so you've changed your medium for that one.
Right. This is similar to the style, or somewhat similar to the palette style that I was using. So I'm pretty much working with abstract expressionism, taking the landscape as a subject. I would go out into the landscape and then make my sketches and then bring them back to the studio and work on them.
We had a question about a painting called Pyramid Lake
Yes.
from 1972, and it looks like in the early 70s you did a shift, and you really came to a kind of a geometric hard edge painting that was very, very firm, very much about color. Tell me how that change came about and how those paintings happened.
Well, at the time, I had a grant with the Bureau of Reclamation to document the dams on the West Coast. So this is a takeoff on the sketches that I made traveling up and down the coast, documenting the different dams. This is a lake in Nevada. It's Pyramid Lake. At that time, I was doing hard edge work with acrylic, and it seemed to fit right into the series that I call the satellite series. So I just used that as the technique I used with the paint. It was a kind of using a plastic paper on top of the canvas, and then using a razor blade and cutting into the plastic covering, and then painting with acrylic, and then pulling off the plastic, and then what was underneath was the image that I cut out, using the sketch as a takeoff, and then using that technique. That was the satellite technique.
And almost like a stencil type of technique. And the views of those paintings, did some of those come from aerial views? I mean, were you flying over some of the sites or hiking in? Yeah.
I had a friend, Anderson, who would take me up, and we would fly, and I would take photographs of the fields and the cloud patterns flowing over the fields. So that was the takeoff on the satellite series, was a low-flying plane.
When I get to the late 70s, when I get to the 80s, the picnic series is really unfolding. And I already can see the subject matter and the way of thinking and the way of painting that is still working for you today as an artist. It seems like the picnic series opened up something kind of infinite. They could just go and go and go. Tell me a little bit about how they took that direction and how they began to unfold when you painted them.
The picnic tables allowed me the opportunity to put different colored tablecloths wherever I wished. So it was sort of I could play with the color ideas that I was dealing with. In terms of putting down the sequential colors, the colors that go down, I try to have what's called a home base. So the home base is often, well, any color. It could be any color, but just say hypothetically, it's a line of dark green, and that dark green I use as a home base, and I can place that dark green wherever I wanted to in the picnic. So along with that dark green, I could place any color side by side. So I could have yellow, dark green, pink. And then taking that as a home base, I could repeat that wherever I wanted it. And then I could add different colors to the edges of the side colors. So next to the pink, I could use an orange. And next to the yellow, I could use a light blue. And then I'd play with that in different patterns. So I could have it vertically, horizontally, and then continue to build out away from that. So it became like a chess game.
Roland Petersen swimming pools are, among other things, opportunities to paint multiple figures in outdoor settings. The sleek Californians who sun themselves at the edge of his swimming pool with flag are the Speedo and Jansen-clad descendants of Cézanne's bathers, living forms in space, brushed with light and shade. Carefully scaffolded into decorative and perspectival schemes, Petersen's characters are stylized into motifs that add human variety to the artist's cloisonné compositions. Petersen likes order, geometry, and regularity, but he also likes shaking things up with hints of narrative and striking silhouettes. In 1953, Roland Petersen was given a one-man show by the Oakland Museum after he won the gold medal in a painting competition, and he is still going strong. The ageless joy in his recent work is so apparent that it brings to mind Picasso's famous line, "It took me 4 hours to paint like Raphael, but a lifetime to paint like a child." Petersen's energy and sense of invention are inspiring. The settings and scenarios of Petersen's newest paintings are varied, and his palette is fearless. In other words, he's having a hell of a lot of fun at the easel.
Thank you, gentlemen. It was truly fascinating and inspirational to hear you discuss many aspects of Roland's career of making art. I would like to thank both of you for being here today and for sharing your knowledge, experience, and enthusiasm for the world of art. Please join us at the Studio Shop Gallery to view in person a retrospective exhibition of Roland's incomparable paintings from 1953 to 2021. Thank you for being with us today.